The Covid-19 crisis is forcing so many of us to reassess things and to learn to cope with the new normal that we keep hearing about. And cricket's no different. So we've been dealing with games in this bio-bubble, plus the World Cricket calendar's been torn up with major events like Women's World Cup, Men's T20 World Cup and the IPL postponed or rearranged. The outgoing ECB chairman Colin Graves, who we're speaking to at tea, recently forecast that some counties might be forced into becoming white ball only operations because of the financial crisis facing the game. So what will the future look like? Will coronavirus have a long-term effect on the game, not just in England, but across the world? Well, Simon Hughes and the owner of the IPL franchise, the Rajasthan Royals, Manoj Badali, have written a book called A New Innings. It looks as how the game can cope in a post-Covid-19 world. And they join us now, Zoom-wise, of course. Hello, Manoj. Like to see you again. Nice beams there I can see in the background. And Yozo, you look as if you're in some... Where on earth, what's that backdrop that you've put there for yours? That's a fascinating cricket ground.
My backdrop is actually Ventnor on the Isle of Wight.
Is it?
And it's one of my favourite grounds. It's in a bowl. Really sort of deep bowl, so you run downhill both ends to bowl itself, and right. It's very close to the sea, and I have actually been hit into the sea.
I'm not surprised.
So it has memories of being a straight drive back over my head and down the cliff and onto the beach.
Well, I can tell you, I saw it 2 days ago. An apocalyptic storm, and it looked nothing like that picture behind you. But anyway...
well, it definitely needs some rain. It needs some water on it, doesn't it, from that picture, anyway?
It does from that picture. Anyway, look, this is obviously a very well-timed book, isn't it? A new innings. And I wonder where we are, because a year ago, we were just about to enjoy that amazing test match at Headingley, when everything in the Test cricket garden, certainly from an England perspective, looked rosy. That innings of Ben Stokes captured everybody involved in the game. And we just had the World Cup as well. And now, suddenly, bang, this happens. So let's start with you, Manoj. Where do you think cricket actually is at the moment as a result of what's happened in these last few months?
I think cricket's actually at a really exciting juncture. There's no question that coronavirus has forced probably more conversation about the business of cricket and the economics of cricket than at any other time in the last sort of 10 to 15 years, probably actually since the advent of the IPL, which is something we try and chart in the book. But I think when you take a step back and you look at the economic growth of South Asia, when you look at the transformation that digital and technology is bringing to all sports, when you look at the events of last summer, you look at the growth of women's cricket, the growth of cricket in the US, the success of the shorter form formats. I think there's a huge amount to be excited about, but cricket's going to have to make some important choices over the next 2 to 3 years.
So, everyone's taking stock, aren't they? In every walk of life. This seems to have been one of those, just take a step back and go, hang on a minute, what's happening to my life and what's happening in everything around me? And so, you put cricket in that same place, presumably.
No question, and I think the title of the book's probably changed about 5 times. We were just about to publish actually the month before coronavirus hit, and we took a step back ourselves and said, actually, what does coronavirus mean to some of the imperatives that we highlight in the book? And actually, our conclusion after about a month was, it simply is going to accelerate some of the decisions that the game needs to make. Yeah,
that's interesting. So in a way, throughout all of this, Simon, it's you would argue that it's an opportunity for the game now.
Oh, definitely. It's such an important game because, the potential to draw in all different communities. We saw from that amazing World Cup final the different communities that it attracts to the game. And, so we had Adil Rashid, of obviously Muslim background. We had Jofra Archer from the Caribbean. We had Ben Stokes from New Zealand, Moeen Ali involved, Owen Morgan from Ireland. It was such an interesting cultural mix. And the fact that we had also had the World Cup final of the women a couple of years before as well. And then we've had that big MCG World T20 women's final attracting 86,000 women or people to the game. So, I feel that the game is on the cusp of a massive expansion, which the IPL was the sort of catalyst for. and bringing in more women as well, as it has. So I think it's got a tremendous opportunity, and it's just a game which we all love. But I think you and I and Manoj actually as well have been in our different ways. We've been on a mission to get more people involved in the game in whatever way, whether it's as a viewer, as a player, as a coach, as a scorer, as a data analyst, whatever. There's so much scope there for employment, and that's what we sort of explore really in this book.
So this innings that you're talking about, this new innings, what's, to put a sort of a cricket analogy into it, how long an innings is it? Are we talking about a real short-term change, if you like a 10 over innings? You're looking at this has got to change now, and all this has got to happen in a very short space of time, or are we talking about a 5-day match here in which you settle down and you do some tinkering and you're playing that sort of innings, Manoj?
No, I think one of the themes we push in the book is that actually, the only constant is change. So there needs to be this process of evolution is something that has to be happening all of the time, and at any time, whether it's a sport or an industry or indeed a company, from my world, sits still and gets complacent, that's when problems will start to unfold. So actually one of our core messages is that one of the things we have to build into the game is a greater level of agility at every single level. And so to use your analogy, it's definitely not it's not a T10 or a T20 change. It's actually a series of changes. I do think COVID, though, is going to force some immediate short-term decisions. I mean, it was interesting with your introduction mentioning the comments that Colin's made about the economic pressures that are going to fall on some English, some parts of the English game. And the reality is, whether it's cricket, whether it's banking, whether it's technology, which is my world, when you have these existential crises like coronavirus, everyone has to reassess. And actually, the people that probably have to make the toughest choices are the people that are otherwise going to be losers in that industry. And there are parts of cricket that have only survived because of cross-subsidization from the parts that work. So I think one of the toughest aspects of the next year or two is going to be whether cricket fronts up to some of those really, really difficult choices around the number of formats we have, for example, yes, around the amount of pressure we're putting our best players under. I mean, you talk about the Headingley Test that followed, an Ashes series following a World Cup, preceding an overseas tour that then is followed by an IPL. I mean, we've got to protect our core assets, who are the players.
Yeah. How much are you playing the traditionalist in all this, Simon? I mean, you are a traditionalist, but you also like innovation as well. So, I mean,
I do,
it's
yeah.
Interesting as to how the balance that you're having here.
I suppose, really, that I know a lot of people probably listening are quite anti the T20 format, but my argument is it's still cricket. It's just a different form of the game, and it's still got a bat, a ball, and a pitch 22 yards long, which was from 1700s is still exactly the same. And in a way, the great advantage of T20 is it's drawn in new income, both from broadcasters and investors like Manoj, for instance, and many other people, sponsors, which has enabled the game to be sustainable and then give us our luxuries, which are Test cricket, first-class cricket, which don't really pay for themselves. Certainly first-class cricket doesn't. It's a drain on the resources of the game. But the opportunity to do that, and that's important because that is the quality, that is the elite version of the game. A lot of the top players still measure their own careers by how much they've achieved in Test cricket.
Yes.
The Joe Roots and Steve Smiths, and they all want to play. Josh Buttler, look at Josh Buttler. He wants to play Test cricket. He wants to prove himself by making 100 at Test level. So we still want to maintain that. But we see that the importance of T20 and the IPL is a third of the world's cricket economy, 600 million it brings in dollars every year. And that's a third of the cricket economy. So it's twice or three times more, I think, than the World Cup brought in. So you need that form of the game it's the shop window for cricket. But there's all that other sort of tremendous stuff going on underneath, which the players really still want to participate in. And in some countries, people still want to watch, but not in all.
But I do think, Aggers, we've got to shift the debate even from what Simon's saying a little bit, which is there's a reality, which is you, Simon, both know that my first love of the game is Test cricket, as it is probably for all three of us. But we've also got to realise we're not the future. And there is this debate that people like Athos push out there around who owns the game, and the game is owned by the fans. And actually our responsibility, whether we're investors, whether we're commentators, whether we're custodians of the game, is to make sure that the game survives beyond our generation. And the reality is what young people want to consume, how young people want to consume entertainment and sport has changed. And so it's not just about playing Test cricket because Joss Butler wants to play Test cricket. It's about asking fundamental questions around how do we sustain cricket for multiple generations to come. And I think sometimes we lose sight as to why we really exist. We get our income because of the fans.
It seems to me, though, that the fans don't own the game anymore. It's the television companies that own the game, actually.
I think that's a great point. And I do, one of the themes we explore in the book actually is, on the face of it, probably, doesn't sound like two of the most interesting themes to explore in cricket. One is the ownership models of clubs and franchises, and the second is how the game is regulated. But actually, the fans, what we're trying to do with those two chapters of the book is actually explain to fans how important improving our understanding of those two issues is for the protection of the game. And I would argue that fans have to have some sort of some representation, and greater representation, both in the governance of the game and also the ownership of the game.
So if
it seems to me that whatever the what the broadcasters want, the broadcast and pay for, seems to be what the broadcasters get and what the game gets, therefore, and what the fans get.
Yeah, but in a way, the broadcasters only pay for it because they know they can, especially in India, they know they can sell it to a billion people. So in Rajasthan, for instance, where Manoj's team is based, there's 110 million population there in the wider area, not just Rajasthan, but the sort of peripheral states. And those people are passionate about cricket. So that's why Star TV paid 2.5 billion for the 5-year rights to show it, because they knew they could get a massive audience. So, in a way, the public do own the game because they want to watch it there. And, just picking up on Manoj's point about ownership, you look at the example of, say, Northants, who were struggling financially, but imaginatively did a sort of share issue and sold a part of the club to the spectators, to the members, and raised, a couple of million through that, and have sort of, partly solved their debt issues as a result. And look at football, someone like Bayern Munich, 75% owned by the fans. So that is and again, that's an area we sort of look at in the book, is how to evolve the ownership of the game so that it's not all owned by the broadcasters or people who, one big oligarch who can wield a big, wallet and do whatever he wants.
Do you worry, Manoj, about the future of the financing of cricket? Because the same broadcasters that we're talking about are probably going to be impacted in the same way as everyone else has been, and the money for the rights and everything that they're paying out for perhaps might not be there, and either they're going to default on the contracts, these massive eye-watering sums that they've signed up for, or broadcasters are going to retreat from paying that sort of money in future. Oh, I've lost Manoj's sound there. Have you pressed your mute button, Manoj?
Sorry.
You might have done.
Not really, Agus, because while broadcasters have got challenges, while sponsors have got challenges, while the economy as a whole has got significant challenges, one of the things that COVID has done, and one of the things we've seen over the last 3 to 5 years, is the emergence of completely new broadcasting platforms and the emergence of big tech. The Amazons, the Facebooks, the Googles, the YouTubes, etc., all of whom are going to play a massive role in the next wave of how cricket gets funded. And so I think, again, it's back to embracing that change, accepting that cricket as a sport has got the ability to integrate data, integrate technology in a way that almost no other sport has. If you focus on those opportunities, I think cricket's got an opportunity to open up whole new sources of income that are as yet untapped.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we talk about in the book, actually, teams, whether they're NFL teams, football teams or cricket teams, have become or are becoming content factories. And all these players are generating lots of fascinating content on, Instagram, Facebook, or, TikTok even, God help us, 15-second dance tracks.
I can't see us doing TikTok.
No, I can't see us doing that. But the point is that there is so much scope there with these players and teams to create content. And it's quite interesting, actually, that the digital opportunity is massive. And, people love being just let into this private world, whether it's in a home or in a team environment, in a dressing room or whatever. And it's quite interesting that there's a partnership in America now. We look at how the digital coverage of sport is evolving in other countries, and America in particular is always a bit of a leader in that sense. And there's a tie-up now between the NBA and Microsoft. And what they're doing with that is basically, instead of having one coverage for everyone, it's almost customizing the kind of coverage to individuals. So you can practically, in the same way as when you click on Amazon now and you choose a book or a record or whatever you want to buy, and it then gives you other options and other offers that you might like, in the same way, the tie-up with NBA and Microsoft is you click on a particular bit of action and it will say, well, you might like this, that or the other, and sort of almost customizes the coverage. And that's that for cricket, which has so many little incidental moments and sections and portions of play which you can package up. It's a wonderful sport for highlights and for packaging, and that's where I think the future opportunities lie, to tempt and tantalize people more by just little sections of play which will interest somebody.
It's lunch here on the first day at the Ageas Bowl. We've had a weather-free session, which is great. 91 for 2 is the England score. They chose to bat first. Crawley is 53 not out. Joe Root is 10 not out. And England lost Burns for 6, Sibley for 22, and they'll be underway here again in 15, 20 minutes or so. So I'm chatting to Simon Hughes, I'm sure whose voice you're recognising there, and also Manoj Badali, who's the owner of Rajasthan Royals. They've written a new book called A New Innings, which looks at how cricket could cope in a post-Covid-19 world. And I said a weather-free session, you two. I guess it's all looking ahead into the future of this new world of cricket, to see the teams trudging off for bad light as often as they did last week. Again, this sort of focuses things on whether we're almost back where we started, talking about everybody taking a bit of a reality check on where everybody is at the moment. And I think, funnily enough, that last week might have moved on that whole business of bad light in cricket actually very quickly and very suddenly, because of the atmosphere and the environment that we're all now living in. Is that a fair point?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, Agus. I think also just a broader question about how we use technology, not just in decision-making, umpiring, player analytics, but how we use technology more broadly to make the game more playable when there is bad weather. So there's been discussion for years about artificial drop-in wickets. If you look at how artificial turf has changed soccer, it won't be, it's not impossible to think that that's something that would come to cricket. There is a bit of a balance, though, and you do have to be a bit careful, because one of the key things we mustn't forget is that the essence or the lifeblood of sport are those media rights. And chopping and changing schedules isn't something. There's a concept called the appointment to view. That's not, so chopping and changing schedules on the basis of light is not necessarily something the broadcasters would welcome. Yeah, no, I agree with that. But you see, the thing is, though, we are already striking off into the future, aren't we, here in the UK? Because we've got the 100. So already, we're marching off into a brave new direction, Manoj. I haven't heard your views yet on the 100, if it ever were to take place. How much more revolutionary could he want than 5 ball overs? I mean, for goodness sake. Yeah, but I think the thing about change is that there has to be a purpose for the change. And so, my own views on the 100 are that a top quality T20 league is overdue in this country. A league that can attract the very, very best players in the world, because that's what defines the quality of the tournament. I do have a couple of issues with the 100, which I think it was a brave thing to change the category. I mean, in industry terms, when a product's working, why would you change the overall category? And I think some of the changes have perhaps been motivated more by a desire to be seen to be different to the IPL than necessarily solving a purpose. There is one issue that the ECB have been very focused on, which is the length of a T20 game, which has increased dramatically over time. But I think there are other ways to have solved that. But look, we've got the 100. We should embrace it. We should enjoy it.
Do you think it'll work?
I think there's a couple of, again, I think to get a new tournament of that ambition, you need off the ground in a way that really captures the nation's imagination. You need a significant amount of capital. And in a post-COVID world, and even in a pro-COVID world, fundamentally the ownership structure of the 100 constrains the tournament simply to the capital that the ECB have available. So I'd love to see an opportunity for private investors to invest in some of the franchises, to bring new money into the game in the way we did in India 12 years ago. I mean, one of the reasons the IPL was a success was because there was over $120 million invested in that first year from outside of the cricket board. So I think that's quite important. But I mean, England is uniquely placed because of its calendar exclusivity to have a top-class T20 tournament. So I'd love to see one.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, the importance about the 100 actually is that it's the appointment to view, which the IPL was very good at. By 8 o'clock at night, every night for 6 weeks, there's a game on. And it enables you to follow the narrative. So, cricket is one of those games, we know it, we love it. But there's a lot of people who find it mysterious, exclusive, difficult to understand and all that. But I think if you have a game on every day and the story unfolds with the 8 teams, so not too many teams to try and take in, but 8 teams, you can gradually grasp, some of the little storylines. And it's all about storytelling. Sport is lots of stories. And if you can have those stories on at the same time every night for a period, people will gradually be drawn into that little world. And, this is what we all want. We just want more people to share in this great game because, it's such a wonderful game, cricket. It's such a wonderful family that we've become part of. And we want more people to enjoy that.
So can you both lead me gently by the hand then and show me what this whole new world is going to look like in, 15 years' time, or whatever your time frame is for how the game is going to be changed as a result of what has happened. Go on, Manoj. Just take me gently.
Look, I think there's a few themes that you'll like and a few that you probably won't. I mean, I do think there's going to be a simplification of the formats. I think there's going to be a reduction of the number of professional clubs and franchises that play the game in the major nations. I think one of the biggest challenges facing the game is the sort of dominance in the economy of India. I mean, there aren't many global sports where 90% of the income comes from one country. And so I think balancing that power and India learning to lead is going to be a really important determinant of the success of this next wave. But I think fewer formats, I think more short form competitions, a greater integration globally across those different competitions so that there's a real purpose to the secondary tournaments and the tertiary tournaments. And I think you're going to see cricket have a real crack at the US as well. I mean, it's something that, we've heard about and we've seen about, and we've had exhibition matches going over there. But the South Asian diaspora presents a really interesting economic opportunity in countries like the UK, the US, and the Middle East. And so I think cricket's got a kind of once-in-a-generational opportunity. And things like the Olympics, which play such an important role in promoting the inclusivity of all sports, have to address South Asia at some point. And if the IOC wants the Olympics to take off in South Asia, there's only one sport that really matters. So those are just some of the things I think you're going to see.
Yeah, and I think also, if you look at the influence of T20, there are now 75 T20 international teams. So the ICC realised that the amazing spread of the game into places like Nepal and Afghanistan and other places. So now they've made 75 countries official T20 international countries. So, you get teams like Mauritius playing a game against Papua New Guinea, and 4 of the teams that have sort of on the periphery qualified for the World T20, which obviously didn't happen in the end. So, we're seeing that sort of expansion of the game, which is fantastic to see. And, what we want to do with this book and in a way with the platform that we've built around it, there's a platform called anewinnings.com. And the idea is to get a discussion going about how the game can move forward and can progress and can expand and can draw in more people, and obviously the Olympics is one way, but at a newinnings.com, there is the opportunity there for all the listeners here to engage with the ideas that we promote in the book and expand those, and let's get everybody talking about it.
Yeah.
I'll make one other prediction, and that's that Test Match Special will still be thriving in 10 to 15 years. And the sort of serious point there is that, very often the incumbents are the resistors to change, but actually a lot of the changes that we talk about in the book are going to benefit existing viewers, existing formats, and existing product, because there will always be, and I hope there will always be, a very, very loyal group of Test Match Special followers. But I was listening to a passage of play today at 12:28, I think, when Sibley was out, and there was sort of 3 or 4 minutes of the integration of Andy and Isha talking about the umpiring and Michael Vaughan talking about the decision, where technology and data were being drawn together for 2 or 3 minutes without a ball being bowled, that made Test Match Special as sort of listenable as it's always been. So I do think the existing products will benefit as well.
And Test match. Look at Test matches now. I mean, look at that Headingley Test last summer, where Ben Stokes won the game with a mixture of, his innings married, traditional Test match accumulation with extraordinary repertoire of shots at the end. Look at that run chase in the last Test, the first Test of this series between Chris Wokes and Joss Buttler. A one-day match, sort of.
Ollie Pope's 100 in South Africa again was a modern cricketer.
Yeah, I think the game, the Test match cricket has improved undoubtedly in the last 10 years, partly from the influence of T20.
So do you see a way forward for Test cricket is actually reducing the Test cricket and actually just the reducing the number of teams, therefore reducing the amount of preparation that players have to have, because they do have to prepare for Test cricket. You can't go out and play a series of Test cricket having purely played T20 cricket. That's not what Test cricket actually is about. But I mean, would fewer teams and so on, and therefore less requirement for preparation amongst fewer players and so on, would that be a way that you're looking at going forward?
I think, you just summarised beautifully the conclusions that we draw around Test cricket, which is, there's an old adage in sort of the business of sport, which is often less is more. One of the worst things you could do for the Olympics is increase its frequency from every 4 years. It's special because it's every 4 years. And actually the danger at the moment with cricket is we are having too much of the tournaments and the events that generate the income, like the Ashes. I mean, the Ashes, when I grew up as a kid, seemed to be a lot more, a lot less than they are today. And so I think fewer Test match teams, making those Test match series greater events and regularising when they are in the calendar, so that people can plan ahead a year or 2 years. I mean, one of the great things about Test match atmospheres are the number of travelling fans and the fun that sort of wraps around the event. One of the great things about Wimbledon is the fun that's wrapped around the event. But we all know when Wimbledon is going to be. I don't think there's anyone listening to this that knows what the World Test Series Championship is about. And there's even fewer listeners that know exactly when the next Ashes series is going to be.
How do you stop people getting bored with T20?
That's a good question, actually. I think I think what will encourage people to watch it more, and I know you're not the biggest fan, Aggers, are you?
Well, I enjoy watching it. I just take a big lasting memory away.
That's obviously a problem. It's always going to be a problem. It's a bit like a sort of fast food meal, isn't it? It gives you sustenance at the time, but it doesn't leave you with. There's no way that you can compete with Test cricket for the sort of fulfilment and depth of experience that you get in a Test match, from a playing point of view as much as from a watching point of view. I think just to see the best players in the world throw their weight behind T20 and really enjoy it. I mean, I spoke to Steve Smith the other day. He loves T20 just as much as he loves building an innings and batting all day in a Test match.
He's getting $1 million a year. I'm sure he loves it.
Yeah, but it isn't only about money. I mean, he loves the opportunity. The thing is maybe 2 million, whatever, but the point is, he loves the opportunity that T20 offers to practice all day. And then he can go out and exploit his abilities in the evening over sort of 10 or 15 overs. It's not going to leave you with the same deep sensation of satisfaction, either as a viewer or as a player. But it's still kind of got great exhibition of the skills of the game and the drama of the game.
Can it evolve further, Manoj, T20 cricket? How do you expect your team to be playing in 10 years' time?
Definitely. I mean, I think there are too many tournaments now. There are too many tournaments that have sort of very limited ultimate purpose. And so I think one of the things the ICC has to think about is how it brings those tournaments together. To answer your question about, there is a risk of T20 saturation, and I come back to, you've got to protect your most important assets other than fans, who are the players. And so meaningless tournaments around the world don't make sense. But I think there is a way of bringing those tournaments together through a reconstituted Champions League, where the best, the winners of the different leagues get an opportunity to showcase. And the reality is the IPL is always going to dwarf other tournaments, because there's no other country that can match the sheer numbers that India's able to generate. I mean, Simon talked about the fact that it's a third of the cricket economy 12 years after its launch. So less. I come back to less is more.
Yeah. We'll have the umpires coming out shortly, Manoj. I must ask you, what are you hearing about the IPL at the moment? I mean, there's lots of rumours going on, isn't there? But is there anything concrete that's been decided yet?
I hope so. Our players just arrived yesterday, so we've most of our squad are already in Dubai. We're starting on the 23rd. The schedule hasn't been published yet.
No.
It'll be played over 3 grounds, as it was in 2014: Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, and Dubai. And then we're hoping that straight after the England-Australia series, certainly for us, it's pretty important that our players can leave straight after that series, given the number of English and Australian players we have. And there's a bit of a debate going on right now about whether fans will be able to attend or not. Okay. I think first and foremost, player safety and the organisers' safety. But as we've seen, the ECB have done an incredible job staging these matches. So I think actually we're taking many, many learnings actually from the ECB and the way they've conducted this sort of bio bubble to the Middle East now.
Will it feel the same, not being staged in India?
I don't think it will feel the same. I mean, it'd be disingenuous to say anything other than that. I mean, for any of, I'm not sure if you've managed to get over there, but for anyone that comes from the overseas over to the IPL, I mean, the fan experience and the fan noise is a huge part of it. But as we've seen this summer, you'd rather watch some cricket than no cricket. And I think the players actually are getting used to now playing without fans, and it doesn't seem to dampen their competitiveness.
It'd be interesting to say, I haven't done a one-day match yet without crowds. Of course, we're doing it for the T20s coming up next week, about how it sounds, how it if you feel that one-day cricket particularly needs...
There's nobody to get the ball either, is it? That's going to be a problem. With a few sixes. There's no crowd catching, so it's going to be a bit of fetching the ball back. Maybe more Yorkers, so you don't get the ball being hit out of the park so much.
But Colin Graves has been saying, apparently, that India are interested in the 100. Are you surprised by that, Manoj?
Interested in the 100 here?
Well, I guess that's what it means. But certainly, just interested in the concept, I suppose.
I mean, look, if I was Colin, and I know Colin well, or indeed his successor, I think for the 100 to maximise its potential in this country, participation from Indian players would have to be, top of my list of things to try and achieve. And it might take some time, but it's a huge strategic priority, because if we can embrace India and get those Indian eyeballs watching a tournament here in the UK, it's fantastic for the game here.
Yeah.
MS Dhoni playing for Birmingham Phoenix. How about
that? Yeah. So just as a last, just underlining what we've been talking about here. I mean, how seismic a change do you think this is going to be, Manoj, or you see it necessary to make to get cricket through this, into this new innings of yours?
Yeah, I think it is pretty important. I mean, conversations around where the game is played geographically, conversations around the number of formats that we continue to invest in, conversations about whether we have private ownership in countries like the UK, which historically, in places like England, where we've historically not had that, conversations around how we knit together the number of global T20 tournaments, conversations around the Olympics. I mean, these are important and difficult topics, and probably the two biggest topics that we haven't even talked about are how we embrace gaming and gambling. In a new world, cricket's going to be looking for every single new source of income that it can possibly get. And when you've got 27 out of the 44 Premier League Championship clubs with betting companies on their front of shirts,
do you approve of that, by the way? Do you think that's right?
I actually don't. I think it's inevitable that sport has to embrace gambling income in some shape or form, and I think the way to do that is to legalise it. The way to do that is to regulate it, and the way to do that is to work with the gambling industry. But I think the almost ubiquitous presence of gambling brands across soccer is something we should be quite fearful of in cricket, because in a post-COVID world, the administrators understandably are going to look for new sources of income.
Quick one, Simon.
I'll just sound a positive note to finish on, really. Not that we've been negative, but cricket is a sport that's been going since the 1700s. It's the great survivor. It's always evolved to adapt to its circumstances, and it will continue to do so. And, our book is really just exploring the kind of ways it will.
Great. Well, it's been lovely to catch up with you again by long distance. Manoj, I haven't seen you for a long time. Good to see you again, smiling away there. Simon, we'll catch up with you as well. So, Simon Hughes, Manoj Badali, the book. When's it out, by the way? Is it out
this week?
In the next week.
Okay, look out for that. It's called A New Innings. Lots of interesting things discussed there.